Torah on Parshas Vayechi, page Mem-Hey, second column, paragraph. Okay, now the Rebbe is explaining the whole lineage of Yehuda, Apamay das Hashem, means that until you have now that there's Reuben, Shimon, and Levi. So he decided, he was discussing the whole time the level of Reuven, which is his baininess meditation, which awakens a level of Ahava, and that's so meditating in the worldly thing, B'shnei Yitzrecha, that's the Aveda of Tshuva, because Tshuva is not only for sin, in fact it's primarily not for sin, but it's even for a person who's in narrowness, golus, distance from Hashem, so they have to go out of golus and awaken the level of Yitzias Mitzrayim. So he says, V'inei zeu inyan Reuven. That's the inyan of Reuven, shuyin part b'china parsha l'shena shebekrishma. He says Reuven is seeing Elokus with the longing, the ava, the longing to go out of Elokus. So he says that is to go out to Elokus. That's the level of parsha l'shena. That's the first parsha of Shema, like you said, Hashem Echad, v'yahavta, and so on and so forth. Well, parsha Sheniya shebekrishma, the second paragraph of Shema, which is V'hoyem Shemaya Tishma'u, that's the level of Shimon. V'hoyem Shemaya Tishma, which is the level of Shuv, which is the level of returning and the realization that the purpose is not only to have the longing to Hashem in a way that you leave the body, like Nadav and Aviel did, but on the contrary, Hashem wants us to be here. Seeing is in the from close. Therefore, you get bigger closer, meaning you want to become completely close to Hashem. Listening is even from the distance. That causes the level of fear. Like the pasuk says in Tehillim, no, not in Tehillim. Hashem shim'ati shimacha yoresi. The pasuk says, Hashem, I heard your calling, so to speak, and yoresi, I was feared. I feared. The fear comes from the level of distance, that comes from the level of smeidecha. Meaning as follows. You have the level of a parent and a child. A parent and a child is closeness. So therefore it's primarily the level of Ava. A king, you're not close to the king, you're not buddies with a king. On the contrary, the king is completely aloof, not aloof in a negative way, I mean it's completely removed and up. So that causes the level of fear and awe of the king. You don't love the king, you have awe and bittul to the king. That's why you have Ava and Yira. That's why we have Avinu Malkeinu, because a Jew has to have both levels. Ki Yira ba machmes becomes from a small deicha. Ki lefi shu deicha mashmal atzmi. Because the person pushes himself away from the level of the king. Leimel lenafshi, to say to himself, Mihu out of libe legeshes, who has the chutzpah to become close to the king. I mean, that's what the pasuk says. Because the person realizes he's really far from the king, and therefore he has to have awe and fear of the king. Then we're going to have the level of fear and awe. The nation saw by Matan Torah, right? Vayanu, and then vayamdu merachik, shebishvil vayanu, shenov, because they trembled. The meaning, shenov alem aim of a fachad, they saw godliness by Matan Torah. So therefore, vayamdu merachik, therefore they stood from the distance, which is the level of shmiyah. Like it says in Middot lipcha, if your heart is running away, so to speak, to leave the body, shuv le'echad. And he says that's the second parsha of Shema, which is the level of Yira. Like it says, he shomer lachem pen yifta. Be careful, you shouldn't turn away from Hashem. So in other words, he's explaining like this. There's Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. So now you have Reuven is the first parsha of Shema. His baininess Ava. Second parsha Shema is Shimon, which is the level Hayim Shemaya Tishmu. That's the level of Yira, fear and awe. That's why the pasuk says by Leah, why did she call him Shimon? She said, Ki Shama Hashem Kisnua Anechi. Hashem heard that I'm hated. Relative to Rachel, she was hated. Okay, in other words, she had this level of bittul. She felt that she was hated, meaning she felt despicable in her own eyes. Through the awakening from below. That she felt she wasn't loved as much as Rachel. Comes the Yesarusa de Le'ela. Ki Shama Hashem b'china shmir merachik. What did Leah say? Shama Hashem ki snua anechi. Hashem heard me because I was hated. In other words, because she felt this level of bittul, that's snua, she felt she was worthless. That causes the level of Shama Hashem, the level of Shmiya, Merachik, Yira. And therefore, skipped a few lines in the parentheses. Okay, so 1 second. You have Reuben and Shimon, Ava and Yira, first parsha, second parsha. What?
I would think that snua, hated, is like an entity in itself.
Yeah, it's the level of, no, it's that I'm no good, I'm hated, I'm worthless. V'hinei, achad Krishma, after Krishma, what do we say? Em is v'yatziv, v'nochem, v'nechman, v'neira, the 15, vovs. V'yatziv, v'nochem, v'kayim, v'yosher, it's all 18. That's the level of Yilove, which is the level of Apam Yilove Ishi. My husband will be connected to me. Right? Yilove means accompaniment. So it means like this. First parsha of Shema is Reuven. Second parsha of Shema is Shimon. After Shema, from Shema to Shemon Esrei, is a level of Levi, and he's going to explain more, which is a level of Yaminu, smaller B'nai Chala. There's right and left, and then the middle, which is Tiferes. Because the left hand pushes away the level of Bittul, okay? So he says they're all interconnected. Ava causes Yira causes Ava, and then you have though Chinis Yilavi Ishi, that my husband Levi is the level of Levi, Masha'im and Be'emes V'yatziv. What do we say in that part of Emes V'yatziv? Hadavar Hazeh, Emes V'yatziv, Hadavar Hazeh. What's Davar Hazeh? This thing is Torah. Sheshah Shemeid Nailo, which is super high. Elo Shenislab Shebedvarim Gashmi. It comes into physical things, like dealing with animals and thieves and liars and all that. Shalcheinim Shoter Lemayim, Sheyodim Mimakim Gavaya, and so on. Okay? So he says like this. The third level is Tiferes, basically, which is a combination of Chesed and Gevurah, Ava and Yira. But he's not talking about the third parsha of Shema, because that's not really parsha of Shema. That's really because we have to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim every day. Why do we say Vayechi? What's the connection Vayechi? Because we have a chiv to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim every day. And that's mentioned, Ani Hashem L'kechem, I'm sure it says Yitzias Mitzrayim. And what's the connection to Shema? Because he said the Ava and Yira every day has to be advanced, has to be more, has to go beyond Shuvah, returning to a higher level than the present state that we're in. So he says, therefore Torah is like unto water. It goes from a high place to a low place. So he says, what's the hisbaininess of after Shema to Shemon Esrei? Person has to think like this. Really, I'm worthless. I'm not worthy of becoming close to Hashem. That's the level of Shmiya, Bittul. I'm really not worthy of it. To become connected to Hashem. Like we say, who can go up? It's too great of a level. Nevertheless, I could do it. And I'm not worthy of it, but Hashem makes me worthy of it.
That's level bittul.
That's, no, Levi. Because what's Torah? Torah is Hashem's essence coming down into Gashmistic things. Which means in essence as follows. Gashmi is L'cha'era, which is Yesh Mi'ayin, not bottle, in essence is still connected to Torah. That means even though Gashmi is not worthy really of being connected to the essence of Hashem, because it denies the existence of Hashem, so to speak, nevertheless, that's the greatness of Torah. That Torah comes from the highest places into Dvarim Gashmi. L'sheirem is gala b'Torah, v'adim is gala yichud zel elyon l'mata k'mei l'maylo. Therefore, this level of godliness in the essence of Torah is the level of the essence of Hashem that comes down. Therefore, iluzais, aidei eisek ha-Torah, can a person through learning Torah yochel lahamshich erin tzav baruch hu mamish l'mata al nafshik. Are you able to bring Elokus down? It's interesting. Who was the Rosh Yeshiva, the Jews in Mitzrayim? Levi?
Yes.
No. It wasn't Rosh Yeshiva. Yehuda opened the yeshiva.
Oh, Levi.
He was the administrator. But the Gemara says Levi was the Rosh Yeshiva. Medrash, the Gemara says Levi was the Rosh Yeshiva in Mitzrayim.
Reuben is Abba.
Shimon is Hira.
Levi is Tiferet. Yehuda is Levi Malchut. What happened to the rest of Middot?
You're in a rush.
Moshe Rabbeinu was Levi also?
Till 120 years, you have a bunch of time yet. Don't worry about it.
Moshe Rabbeinu was Levi also?
Yeah.
Rabbi, Torah wasn't given, so what were they studying with the
What did Avraham Avinu learn in yeshiva? What did Yaakov learn 14 years in Shem Ve'ever?
There wasn't much to learn.
Yes,
No, really.
they played cards.
What was it? What was the shul?
Let me ask a different question. If Yaakov learned Torah for 14 years, yeah? Yaakov was a Chabadnik, right? I mean, we know the truth. So he obviously did Chitas, Rambam. So he learned Chumash. So Yaakov Avinu learned Chumash. And then, obviously he read the story of Yosef. He didn't skip that part. So l'chayr, if Yaakov learned Torah, how did he not learn that Yosef was sold and his father mourned for him for 22 years? I mean, what's his problem then?
You didn't learn Torah.
So the answer is, I'll tell you what they learned. The Ramban says in his introduction to Chumash, the Ramban says, before Matan Torah, it says, Rashi says in Chumash, Rashi says, Noach learned Torah. How did Noach know kosher animal, not kosher animal? Rashi said, Mikan shalom do Noach Torah. Rashi calls in the Medrash that Noach learned Torah. So Ramban says a very interesting thing. Before Torah was given, the whole Torah was one long word. The whole Torah was one long word. Now we have like this: Bereshis bara Elokim, Es Shemayim. This right? Bereshis bara Elokim, Es Shemayim v'Esaretz. 7. The Maltum says why 7? Whatever. Now, but if the whole that sentence would be one long word, you can define it like this: Bereshis could be, you could learn it bar, Eish. I mean, you could learn it a million different ways. So he could learn Torah not even realizing that the Yosef was sold as a slave. You could define it once it's one long word.
In other places it says they learned Torah as it is, but they didn't learn the parts that related to them wasn't revealed to them.
Where does it say that?
You said it before.
I said it? No. It so doesn't make sense. I couldn't have said it.
Those parts
I mean, not that I don't say things that don't make sense.
Those parts that
What do you mean they skipped it? It's like when you learn with little kids, you skip Yehud and Thomas story,
They
and you
didn't
skip.
skip it, it wasn't revealed to them.
They learned Torah or not?
They did.
Torah was the way we have it now? According to what you're saying.
The halachas of Torah were there. The concepts were there. That's what they learned. They learned the concepts.
Who said?
Other
That's
than-
not what the Ramban says. The Ramban says they learned in his introduction. The Torah was one long word, and that's what they learned.
So they do some parts of it, like eating matzah and Pesach, but they didn't know some other important things?
Correct.
But was it written down as one long word?
That's what the Ramban writes.
But the whole life may be one long word right now. Things.
The Rogatchover says that from the first letter of Torah to the last letter of Torah is one long word.
Well, obviously not understood the concept of Tum'ah and Ta'ah. So, if it was one long word, how did you understand that concept?
I don't know, I guess they figured it out the way they learned it.
Why was it desire for them to learn?
Torah is the wisdom of Hashem.
It wasn't given to them.
It wasn't given, so it didn't permeate Gashmias yet. But there was still a level of Torah.
That
How
means
did they
Torah has
know
billions-
there is a Torah? Right now we learn.
Hashem told them.
Who told them?
Torah has billions of combinations.
Hashem revealed himself to Adam. Hashem revealed himself to Noach. Like we said many times, why wasn't Noach a Jew? Why wasn't Adam Rishon the first Jew? They were great Mr. Shalach. They were great tzaddikim. Chanoich. Why was Avram Avinu the first Jew? So the answer is, all those other people, Hashem revealed himself to them. Avram Avinu hikar his beira on his own, at the age of 3, 40, 47. The three different opinions. The Rabbi says it's actually 3 stages of his understanding of it. He came to that realization on his own. That was his greatness.
No, I did not know to bring kosher animals.
But Yomer, because Hashem said to him, from the kosher animals, from the non-kosher.
What's kosher, what's not? I mean,
That's what I'm saying. So Rashi says over
you
there,
learn halachas from one.
Mikan Shalom the Noach Torah.
Yeah, what kind of Torah? There were halachas.
So there are certain halachas they maybe were given directly, but the way they learned Torah, was it was one long word, deciphering
You
it.
can't learn anything like that.
That was
What?
You can't learn anything from the Torah.
You can't.
No, you can't. Actually.
So maybe halachas were told to them by Hashem.
I mean, Torah has billion combinations.
Good morning. Is Torah believable?
Yes.
So what do you mean billions? You're shocked with billions. Billions is a limitation.
One word this way and that way.
The first pasuk of Chumash, Bereishis bara Elokim et hashamayim v'haaretz, is that pasuk believable?
Yes.
But it's 7 words.
You can put it together.
Is the believable in the gvul?
Yes.
That's what he's saying over here. Torah comes into Gashmistika things, which means the Torah is believable in gvul. Therefore, Torah controls world.
Depends on the perception of the reader. If Noah read it certain ways to pick up certain halachot, he read it that way. Abraham, Yaakov, in Yeshua read it his perception differently.
Right? Who says no?
For you that was studying his own faith in the Torah?
That's what I'm saying. Obviously, he didn't study his own faith because then he wouldn't have mourned for 22 years.
So if he studies Torah, he can't
But I'm saying he didn't study Torah that way.
He can't be discriminative. Okay, I'm not going to study this chapter because...
No, that's what I'm saying. He didn't skip anything.
It seems like a computer program. Depends on how you reception.
You know, they have the codes, the Torah codes. Now it's not. It used to be very popular for a while.
Yeah.
Okay? That was also reading the Torah in very funny, different ways.
They find the name of Hitler in the Torah.
They found...
You can find anything you want. You can find anything you want.
somebody told me you could do the same thing with a phone book. I don't know. I don't know. You know what they say? If you have 1 million monkeys
Yeah.
and 1 million typewriters for 1 million years, you'll get Shakespeare.
No, you won't.
But
That's what you're saying, that you won't. That's what they're saying.
before you were
The
born,
illusion is-
excuse me, before you were born, there was a saying in America. If you have 1 million monkeys for 1 million years and 1 million typewriters, you get the work of Shakespeare, but there'll be so much junk beside it, you'll never find it. Sorry, you're a young kid. Before you were born.
Yeah,
You never heard it?
I heard that this is perfect time. I thought it was.
Okay, let's go back to it.
Now we know a lot more that we don't know. Go ahead.
The purpose of learning B'chlal is to realize we don't know anything. That even down here, and that's the level you love ishi elai. What does the pasuk say? My husband will accompany me. That means my husband is coming to me. Hashem is coming to us. That's the level of Torah. It's all about Torah. And that's emes v'yatziv. Shemarich and lasher la'asher, we're lengthening it to establish. Ulakaim es hadavar zalein of alvesen al rishenu. Umamshich and umayla, we bring down from above the level of emes v'yatziv v'nacham v'nachman v'noim. Li'esam shach ein so baruch hu sheirum is galaber Torah. That Elokus should be revealed in Torah. Okay? So now we have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Ava, Yira, and accompaniment. So now he says in the next paragraph, now these 3 levels are still the level of Mamala Kol Almin, which is Bechinas Hamshachas Ein Sof Baruch Hu, to the level of Mamala Kol Almin. Now, meaning like this. Mamala Kol Almin is the way Hashem comes into the world, right? Mamali permeates the world, it's on the level of the world. So that's a limited level of Okus. So over there, because it's already limited and identifiable, so then you have different levels. There's a level of Reuven, there's a level of Shimon, and then there's a Levi of Yehuda. Level of Yehuda, no, not Yehuda. You have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. This is Ava, this is Yira, this is the Yilavi Ishielai, which is Teferes, because Torah is Teferes, right? So he says, it's mistake to awaken the level of Ava. Mistake to become one with Hashem. If the whole purpose of davening is to become united with Hashem, that means you're really not united yet. And you have to become united. That's the whole Indian davening, to come to Ava and Yir. Yesterday we davened. So we had it yesterday, Ava, Yira, but that was yesterday. Today we need to have a new Gilui. That's all the level of Mamala Kol Almin. But here comes the level of Yehuda Bittul. Bittul is above all that. Ava B'chinas Yehuda, which is the level of a Heidah. B'chinas Bittul v'iskalus burns of Baruch Mamash Yosev Kol Almin, and that's the level of the bowing of Shemon Esrei. In other words, like this, Bittul is not identifiable as a certain particular entity. I'm not here. I have Ava, I have Yira, that's what I am. Bittul is that I'm not. So that's not identified at any level of world. If I don't exist, that's the level of Elokus. So that level is above world. Therefore, Shemon Esrei, like he says, is the bowing level. It's the level he's going to say soon. It has to be quiet. Now, Shemon Esrei, you have to say halacha, you have to say quietly. We learn it out from Chana, because when Chana was davening for Shmuel, she davened quietly. But here the Alter Rebbe is explaining why is it quiet. Why do we daven Shemon Esrei quietly? So he says, L'chein tefillah b'lachas v'chashoy, which is a level of Seviv Kol Almin, the infinite level of Elokus. Infinitely greater than the worlds. It's not at all in the realm of Ava and Yira and all that. It's not even called Ava, it's not even a name. It's Bittul b'Metzias Mamish Lagamri. That's why, well, how do you daven Shemona Esrei? You have to stand, that itself is Bittul. You have to stand with your feet together, no movements, no, you're not allowed to make any movements, motions during Shemona Esrei.
Not at all?
No. The only thing you're allowed to, unless those guys are going like this, they're grabbing the angels. I didn't know those people, they're going like this, they're grabbing the angels. But normally during Shemona Esrei, you're not allowed to hold anything in your hand besides the siddur, because then you need to daven. You're not allowed to make any motions, any movements. That is all a level of bittul. That level of bittul, therefore that level is atzilus. It's higher than world. There's no hamshachav, I love Hashem. There's no me that loves or fears or whatever it is. That's the level of Yehuda. That's a much greater level. So what the pasuk is saying, now that Leah said, Hapam, now that they had Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, now that they had Abba, Yira, and all that, now I can come to the level of Yehuda. Now I can come to the connection with Hashem in an infinite way. There's a connection to Hashem in a limited way, meaning love and fear, right? My love is limited based on the meditation. My fear is limited based on the realization of how mighty and awful Hashem is. And you love each, you're learning Torah based on how much I learn, how I learn, and so on. That's all a connection to Hashem in a limited way. Bittul is the way a person is connected to Hashem in an infinite way. There's no there's no me, there's Elokus. And that's why Shemona Esrei is that level of bittul. That's the level of Haidah.
Because the moment you say me, it's blocked the light.
Correct. Even me of Kedusha blocks the light.
That's why when you plant sugar.
That's what the Rabbi writes recently in a Yom Yom. There's no I say, I think, I did. That doesn't exist. Because so then it's all about you. It's about you. Then you're connected to Hashem in a you way. Which is very limited. What, grandkids?
Sometimes the grandkids call me and say, I'm not here.
When somebody else calls.
Right. Say, I'm not here.
Shmaya.
Oh, yeah.